I'm so thrilled to be joined by three dynamite sustainability leaders. This is just fantastic to have three different industries represented here on stage, and really excited to dive into our questions today. In the past, when we've had workshops with sustainability officers or other conversations with sustainability officers, I've noted that they can almost take on a little bit of a event session form. I think there are certainly challenges that you all are facing, and many of you in our audience are facing, as we're seeing sustainability and ESG move from sort of our big and exciting commitments into sort of a phase where we have more eyeballs on what we're doing, and greenwashing concerns are in high effect. And there's a lot of turmoil that's going on in the world around us. So I'm curious to hear from each of you, what is the biggest challenge facing sustainability leaders today? Titta, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Abby. I'm super happy to be here. Actually, those who don't know Syensqo, a couple of words, it's pronounced Syensqo. It's a specialty chemicals company that really enhances the way we live, work, travel, and play. In fact, our specialty solutions are available in many, many applications. You can think about medicines, 80% of medicines packaging, 25% of shampoo, biodegradable shampoos, and so forth. So really using chemistry as an opportunity to enhance sustainable solutions for our customers. I think we're a new company. We're spun out of Solvay, a larger chemical company, and we're 13,000 employees strong, around 30 countries, in fact. And I like to think of us as a startup. It's a good, sizable startup in a way, is that 13,000 employees, but the mindset is very much there. We're small enough to be nimble and agile, at the same time large enough to scale sustainable solutions for businesses. I think you asked about greatest challenge. I would really say it's in the round of time. I think, we have a huge sense of urgency to find these solutions and tackle sustainable for a better world. And at the same time, transition is a journey and takes time. Mm-hmm. So balancing act a sense of urgency and agility and acceleration while we transition is really something that is a real reality and necessity, I think, for us. And in our own operations, we look at sustainability in two ways. We break it down in our own operations, but we also look at our products. So we're leveraging chemistry to bring sustainable products to our customers. And we have today 62 industrial sites around the world who have already, out of those 65% are using renewable energy, actually. And even in US and China, our manufacturing sites have 100% renewable electricity. So it shows how we're tackling rapidly our own operational emissions. And then, of course, on our products, and I can speak about that a little later, is really our innovative capabilities, how we drive, for instance, next generation batteries and bring lightweighting for aviation and cars. So I would just say all of that happens, but not alone. So this is huge need for partnerships. And I think if we recognize the power of partnerships, we're really able to accelerate at pace and scale while we transition on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. So it's going to take a full force. Rhian, I'd love to go to you next. What's the biggest balancing act that you're facing at National Grid?
I'm going to give a couple of answers. You asked for the biggest thing. I'm going to give like a number. One of them, I guess, is, I think, particularly in sustainability, is how do you balance the need to comply and report with the need to continue to be strategic? And I think that you could get sucked into all the compliance you need to do. You could get sucked into the yearly reporting, even in the internal quarterly marking of your goals. But at the same time, I think the sustainability and the CSO role is sort of so broad and so strategic that you actually need to sit across the top of the business. And actually, I think the risk is if you get drawn into the day-to-day reporting, you forget to look more strategically and you forget to engage widely across the business. So I think getting that balance right is one of them. The second thing, I've got three, so the list isn't endless. The second thing was probably how do you get it seeded through the whole of the business? So it's fine to sit at the top and set commitments and goals and targets, but actually it needs to be something that goes right through the DNA of the business, so it needs to go right to the bottom. So we spent a lot of time in the last year embedding it in transformation business plans, embedding it in the financial planning process, embedding it in the way we manage performance in the business, embedding it in remuneration, so that you start to build that picture that what you say at the top is the walk that you're doing at the bottom of the organisation. And another one, just to throw it out, then I'm sure it will come up in conversation, has come up before, is I do also think about the talent in sustainability. We were sort of briefly touching on it. I think, 10 years ago, perhaps it was just about greenhouse gas accounting and sort of head down, and it was just about how do we do the numbers. And I think today the skill set that you need in sustainability teams is far wider than that. And so you need people who understand investors, you need people who understand the strategy, you need people who communicate, you need people who can do the accounting, you need people who can think about the policy environment, for us the regulatory environment, because we can't do this without the support of our regulators. So I think the skill set then becomes really multi-discipline, and building teams that can adapt to that, I think, is another thing that is that I'm sure I'm thinking about it, but I'm sure other CSOs are as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Caroline, would love to hear your thoughts on this and what your biggest challenge is.
I think we are seeing an explosion in regulation, which is really changing all the time. There's new stuff coming on track, and whilst we really support that in terms of a levelling of the playing field, that does, of course, bring with it challenges. I'm super happy that I work in a company that's had a 20-year-long sustainability programme. So, I'm coming off the back of a very strong programme already that we can build on in terms of meeting those regulations, those disclosures across product, across, CSRD, CS-DDD, the list goes on. So really strong underpinnings. The other area of underpinning is really achieving that supply chain traceability. And I know many businesses, both within the luxury and fashion sector and beyond, are really grappling with traceability. And again, we have a clear commitment to achieve that supply chain traceability in a programme that's in flight at the moment that's really unlocking that. But again, it's a big piece of work, and it's a complex area for myself and many businesses.
Yeah, I think it can be very hard to predict what's happening, particularly in the regulatory space, when the explosion is right. I mean, it just seems to be nonstop, and we've had some conversations earlier in the day that got to, I think it was Daniel Hanna who said this has been, just a little bit lost in the alphabet soup of things, and so I think it is a very big challenge that we're all facing.
And I think if I
go ahead,
add quickly to that, I think it's absolutely right. I think the increasing regulations are there and they, not only in Europe, China, US are looking at their own versions of things, and that is an absolute massive challenge for our companies. I also see it as a huge opportunity. In fact, it kind of stretches us all our thinking. How do we strategically look at sustainability, and I think also on scope 3 and supply chain and broader value chain recognition of emissions and so forth. Data is our best friend. I think in a previous channel, data was brought up and I think it resonates here too, and I just wanted to bring it up. I think all the possibilities of AI that could help us to augment our data that we collect in a way that we can better forecast is really a huge opportunity for us. And we have actually, as a company, just created our own Syensqo.ai that enables us to do just that, actually. So we're recognizing the opportunities within the challenging landscape.
Sure. Yeah. And I think we're all looking, the quest for all of us, right, is more data, better data quality data, and that's reliable. We could probably have a whole nother session on AI and sustainability and debate on that. But I would love to actually toss to the audience and take your temperature a little bit. We have a poll that is about where the sustainability team sits within your organization. So really curious to hear from all of you who are working in this space today on kind of where your reporting line goes. Is it directly to the CSO? Are you maybe reporting to a CFO, the finance department? Operations, more of a legal or compliance type of leadership. And then also we often see marketing and communications, maybe where this has sat in the past as before we have started really getting into some of these other pieces of the business. I think we can all agree that the best strategy is to integrate sustainability across all of these departments. So I'll be curious to see where the audience lies with this. We'll get to those responses in just a minute. But in terms of our panelists on stage, Caroline and Titta, you report directly into your CEOs. And then Rhian, you report into your strategy and regulation officer. I'm curious how that regulatory piece kind of comes into your day-to-day and how that impacts the way that you do your job.
Yeah, so I think sustainability is in the right place in our organisation because I think it is a strategic issue. It does run through all of our businesses. So it sits in a team with strategy, strategic regulation, transformation. And again, it's this link to the top to the bottom and getting it embedded as a strategic priority, but also in all of our transformation. And we're a regulated utility. So we basically, both here and we have 50% in the US. We work with regulators and we get periods of investment, say 3 years, 5 years. And so the regulators are really, really key because actually what you need in those regulatory settlements is the ability to make the investments that transforms the business. So it sets us up to bring more renewable energy into people's homes and businesses. But in the US, we also put gas into people's homes. So we work with the regulators there to basically enable us to decarbonise the gas to put into people's homes. So it's fundamental to what we do as a business.
Yeah. I may have forgotten to say, but you can vote in this poll by going to the QR code up there, scanning that and getting your votes in, and we'll get to the results in just a minute. Let's switch over to the CSO sort of reporting line. Caroline, I know when we had previously spoken that this is something that your CEO is deeply involved in on a day-to-day level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm super fortunate to report directly into the CEO. And again, massive benefit for me in the role when I took the role. It means that I'm sat at the table with our exec. Jonathan, our CEO, chairs our sustainability committee. We get together on a monthly basis for 90 minutes dedicated to this agenda with all of our exec round that table, really looking at what we're trying to achieve, how we're going to achieve it, and how we can embed it in those functions. So I see my team as a centre of excellence, almost like a consulting function to the business, but with delivery sat within supply chain, within merchandising, within digital. And as the old saying goes, what interests my boss fascinates me. Obviously, when Jonathan's there chairing the sustainability committee, all of the excos sit up a little bit straighter. It sits in their objectives. We've managed to embed it within not just our executive bonus, but also within our colleague bonus. It means I get a very direct line into the board as well. So I'm in with the board regularly, a few times a year. But not only that, I have regular calls with our head of audit committee, our head of REMCO committee, and we have a lot of sustainability expertise on our board, and I have that direct line. So I do see it as a really key unlock, and it just speeds up decision making as well. I've got that direct route in to sort of drive those mandates, and I'm not saying that's enough. You've also got to have the groundswell. It's got to be built from the bottom up as well. But having that high level leadership and mandate is really a great benefit.
Wow. Titta, I'm curious, Ilham, of course, has been sort of a pioneer in this space and has come over in the spin-off. So can you tell me a little bit about how the two of you are working together and sort of what your vision is for Syensqo?
Sure, I think, it's a huge pleasure to work with Dr. Ilham Kadri, who's our CEO. She's passionate and committed to sustainability, and I think she is the real CSO in certain ways. And we both believe, actually, that we will be able to make greatest impact if we make everybody in a company a CSO.
Yeah.
It's everyone's responsibility, yeah. And that's what I'm after, right? So really drive that ambassadorship and inspiration and helping across the organization colleagues to understand in their roles and functions what can they do. So that is really something we're after, and that will be helped by a lot of education and training programs that we have. Similar to you, Caroline, as well, I think it does really help to have a CEO not just buy in, but true drive on this agenda, not just internally, but also externally. And I think this is really, really vital. I have seen companies who don't have necessarily CEO buy-in, and perhaps the action is slower, or perhaps the targets are not as ambitious in a way. So certainly for us, we're aiming for next best, and Ilham is a really true leader in this space. We've also been able to do to this, bring our board even closer to sustainability with our ESG board committee, and also make sure that different functions in their own capacity are acting on sustainability. So and I think making this really accountability for everyone happens also through how we look at our, you talked about bonus schemes, we have incentive schemes that actually translates directly our targets. So everyone actually, sees what they need to do, and it's accounted on. And when it comes to incentives or bonus pay day, one realizes we're doing good by doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great sentiment, and I'm curious to see the answers of our poll to see where you all sit within your organizations, if we could pull those results up. Okay, so looks like CEO and operations are really taking the lead. Almost tied here. I think this is very interesting to see. Yeah, now I pull it up and we're all getting involved. I like it. I like to see it change. That's fun. Yes, I think this is a really unique breakdown, and I'd be curious to see if in a couple of years we see that legal and compliance piece, regulatory piece, perhaps, Rhian, that maybe you lead into, if that will grow, or if we'll start to see the CEO direct reporting line take on more precedent. I would like to shift over and hear some concrete examples from you all. You're in the trenches on this, and so there's nobody better to ask. But with all that's going on in the world that we alluded to at the beginning of the session, can you share an example of a time where perhaps your company has been facing adversity, or there's just been other outside factors that have made it difficult to advance your sustainability goals? And can you share a little bit about a time that you worked through that? I'll start with you, Rhian.
Yes, I don't think it's adversary difficult, but I guess it's interesting how things have changed. So we had our near-term 2030 targets validated by the Science Based Targets Initiative last summer. We published them in September. And we previously had them aligned to 2 degrees. We've now got them aligned to 1.5 degrees. And it's just interesting comparing, I think, the way we originally did it with the way we did it last year. So we basically spent a lot of time with the businesses working out actually could they get to the targets, and what would we need, and how much could we control, and actually how much did we need support from our policymakers and regulators. And then on top of that, we then spent a lot of time with the board, sort of 2 hours in total, talking it through, looking at the pathways, understanding the opportunities and the risks. And I think that wasn't what we did previously. And so I think that sort of, for me, it shows the way this has become a very strategic topic that everybody is interested in, to the opening comment, more eyeballs on. And in fact, I think that we then, we wanted to know we could do it, which we can, but we took time. So it wasn't just a sort of, a quick decision we took. And I think it's that level of scrutiny and analysis and senior strategic eyeballs, and thinking this is a strategic decision we're taking for the business. This is something that sets us apart. This is something that drives the future. This is something we'll invest against. And my feeling is that to your opening, we all set commitments a few years ago. I'm not sure we always knew exactly what those commitments meant, but it was the right thing to do. And I think today that level of scrutiny has changed, and so they're much bigger decisions and more strategic decisions. So yeah, that was probably a case study from us.
I'm very curious, Titta, you mentioned sort of the challenge of urgency and time. Are you all feeling like maybe having all these eyeballs, so to speak, on, or these added layers of process and getting things through, is that deterring us from this kind of urgent need to meet these 2030, 2040 targets?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks at times, I do believe that having harmonized regulatory frameworks, reporting frameworks will help us all to advance. Now, at times, one might say the day we're spending on reporting, the day we're not doing. And that's quite real, that sentiment at times, is that when we need to accelerate and find the raw materials and bio feedstock for our customers to be able to deliver products, the day we're spending on reporting isn't doing that.
Sure. Caroline, anything to add on your side?
Exactly that point. I think you can only report on what you're doing.
Right.
And we've got to make sure that those programs are still moving forward and remain absolutely committed to that. Sure. So absolutely. But I see frameworks like the transition plan framework super helpful, actually, because this is about moving this agenda away from these big commitments. We sort of all set commitments back in the day. I came out of Kingfisher, where you set big, audacious goals, and then you figured out how you're going to deliver them. We're now in the place where we've really got to nail down those tangible action plans, and there are those frameworks out that define what a credible action plan looks like, and I think we're super supportive of that.
I think the other thing I'd add, and I think in a way CSRD does drive this, is I think materiality assessments are super important, and they're much more strategic endeavours than perhaps we thought in the
Yeah.
past, because you can't do everything. So I think we have to be
Yeah.
really clear and really strategic. What is it that matters to each of our businesses? Where can we, as a business, make a difference versus everybody else? And then really go after, in a focused, deliberate, actionable way, those areas. I mean, when we first did a materiality assessment, I think we had about 30 issues that appeared on it. We did another cut about 18 months ago, and I think there were about 20 issues. I think we could imagine doing it again in a couple of years and that coming down. It's not that the other issues aren't important, it's just you get better at understanding where do we really make a difference as a business, and let's then double down on those areas.
I think in a way it's about not giving up, and challenging the status quo, going after what you need to go and do what you can do, right? And measuring that. We have devised circular sale goals, targets for our company, and it's actually quite rare in a hard to abate sector like chemical industry we're in. And it took us 3 years to understand what is a circular sale in a way. And so Ellen MacArthur Foundation, for instance, helped us to define what that looks like, and now we're on it. And now we are reaching our target very closely from 18%. We're at 13% now, and that's really great in a way. And these kinds of materiality assessments help us to define that space.
I think we're also seeing a maturing of the agenda away from just it being a pure carbon agenda to really expanding into that nature agenda, and those frameworks beginning to come through. So it can't just be that carbon's the name of the game anymore, and regulation is supporting that, but business is becoming more mature in looking more holistically at, exactly like you say, what are our material impacts, both through a financial lens and an environmental lens, and how can we really take tangible action to affect those.
Okay. We only have a few minutes left, but I sort of want to shift gears. We were talking about the power of partnerships and how that can help you accelerate your goals. I'm curious from another source of pressure that you may be getting from a customer or your consumers, your sort of end users here, obviously 3 very different companies represented here. So I just quickly wanted to sort of ask each of you what a customer means to you, and how are you delivering quality and affordability to them, without sacrificing those things as you're delivering them a greener end product. Rhian, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so in the US, we actually deliver gas and electricity directly into people's homes. So we are constantly thinking about how do we make it clean, how do we make it affordable, and actually how do we make sure everybody has access. So it's quite front and centre of everything that we do. Here in the UK, customers tend to be people who want to put renewable energy into the grid and connect. And so actually we've been working quite hard with the industry and with government to make sure you can connect all of what we need. We end up having this long queue, and it's sort of quite topical at the moment, but a long connections queue. We've got way more than we need. So we've sort of had to shift the way we do it to make sure that it's not a first come, first serve, but it's a use it or move in the queue. And even then, how do you get the most important projects to the front? So it has the need to think through from our customers' perspective has basically enabled us, working with government, to totally alter the way we run the business and the way that regulation is set up to allow us to run the business.
Yeah. Caroline, what about you? What about your luxury customers? Are they demanding greener products?
Absolutely. I mean, we run pulse surveys, but myself, when I first joined Burberry almost 2 years ago, I went and spent time in our Regent Street store, which is a delight, and just talked to our colleagues there about what customers are asking them. And they want to know that the products are made from the most sustainable materials, that they come from the most ethical supply chains, and that those products are going to stay in use for a very long time. So we know that that matters. And we look at our heritage trench, which we mill and we make within the UK still. We've moved that to be almost completely organic cotton, 97% organic cotton with a fully traceable supply chain. But not only that, we repair, we reseal, we reproof, we keep that product in use for longer, and then we also offer resale opportunities. So it's kind of the opposite of fast fashion, and we know that matters to our customers. That delights them, that they can buy a product and know that they're almost buying a product for life. And that message I'm just super proud of.
Absolutely. We are about to get kicked off of this stage, but I will let you have the last word, Titta.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'll be really short. I think we see ourselves as innovation partners for our customers, and the way we do that is we have our 2,000 scientists in our adaptation labs around the world, and this means we're actually co-creating, designing in sustainable solutions for our customers what they require. And that means we're able to bring products such as composite materials that enable lightweighting for airplanes or cars. We're piloting on hydrogen, for instance, for better fuel efficiency and cleaner fuel. So, opportunities like that is really working together with our customers on what they need is vital. And that is where I think the added value comes in. And that helps our top line.
Fantastic. Rhian, Caroline, Titta, thank you so much for joining us. This was a fantastic conversation, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank
you.
Thank you.